What if I told you that the man who predicted 8 years ago that Bitcoin would hit $100,000 now thinks we're on the eve of the biggest economic transformation in human history? In this episode of Bitcoin for Millennials, I talk with Marc van der Chijs, a serial entrepreneur who sold China's YouTube for billions and then pioneered Bitcoin mining with Hut 8. We talk about his journey, his curiosity-driven mindset, and his belief that Bitcoin and AI are transforming the future of money and work. We take a shot at predicting the future, why traditional banks will disappear within 5 years, and why most people aren't prepared for what's coming. And also, of course, that they need Bitcoin to protect themselves. All right, let's dive in. All right, Marc van der Chijs, welcome to Bitcoin for Millennials.
Thank you, Bram. Good to see you here.
Yeah, well, good to see you here. I know you are very busy, so I really appreciate your time. You are, at least for me, a true Bitcoin OG, also with mining, setting up Hut 8 back in the day, doing a lot of entrepreneurial stuff as well. I think you have an amazing view about AI, the future, so I'm excited to dive into that. But first, I kind of wanted to ask you about your personal journey and the mindset also around Bitcoin. So you are, I think, a Bitcoin maximalist, but you are also focusing on AI and other technologies, of course. What made you look at the future like this, basically? Like, where does that kind of motivation comes from to always look at the future and think about what's next, basically?
Yeah, it's curiosity, I think, right? It's something that's inside you that always, sort of forces you to always look what's happening in the world, where the world is going to. The reason I found Bitcoin is because I sort of semi-retired in 2013. I had taken my first company public. It was later sold to Alibaba for a very large amount. So I had time, and so I was able to spend a lot of time on what's happening in the world. So it's really curiosity, and then looking at where the world is going, and looking at it in a different way than most people did at that time, and basically realizing that the fiat system wasn't looking great. This was 2013 for me, so this is 12 years ago now. And at that time was really, there were not many people that saw what I was seeing, and that's why I started investing. Around 2013 in my first Bitcoins. Not a lot in the beginning, just playing around with him, and went to conferences and started speaking as one of the few people wearing a suit at the time at these conferences. I was a VC. I wasn't wearing a tie, but I was wearing a suit, so it was kind of interesting. So people recognized me by that. And later, I decided to go back to jeans, and haven't worn a suit in years actually. But in those days it was different. Yeah. So it's curiosity, just looking at the future, and then seeing where things are going, and taking positions in the market based on that. And originally that was just Bitcoin. Later, it's also AI right now, and. But indeed, I'm still a Bitcoin maximalist, although I do have some other coins, but it's majority Bitcoin, vast majority Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's nice that you say curiosity, because now I think you are going to be guest or episode 196. So I'm almost at 200 people that I talk to, about Bitcoin. And I think the general word or character trait is curiosity, right? Yeah. But then, you're a good person to ask this. How do you make that actionable? Like, you can look at stuff all the time and think about cool new things all the time and trying to find the next big thing. But like, how do you create conviction in a sense? I think when we talk about conviction with regard to Bitcoin, some people might interpret that as, you're buying Bitcoin because, Marc said it or Bram said it or some influencer said it. But like, conviction is built from a certain understanding based on a certain study, reflection, etc. So how can you make your curiosity actionable?
It's very simple. By starting small, by buying a little bit of Bitcoin, basically, you're forcing yourself to look at it more. It's the same when I buy certain stocks. I don't buy big numbers right away. I buy a little bit, and it forces you to look at the stock price, and by doing research on the company, and then you start building a conviction. And especially when price starts going up, if you buy, then you're like, hey, maybe I'm right. I'm going to buy a bit more. Yeah. Well, I'm not smart. It's not necessarily being smart. It's seeing the world in a different way than most people see it, right?
Yeah.
Like with stocks, for example. Wall Street only looks 12 to 18 months ahead. I look 5 years ahead in general. That means you can be wrong for the first 12 months, but eventually you're going to be right, and you're going to make a lot more money than you would if you look at Wall Street only. So the same with Bitcoin. I started quite small, and and started adding to the position over time, and and getting more and more convinced of the fact that I was right. I mean, in 2013, it was difficult to predict where Bitcoin would go. It was, there were so many risks. There were, nobody really knew where it was going to go. It could have gone to zero easily. And there were a few moments that I thought it was going to go to zero. But I mean, that's completely gone now. Basically, since 2017, since the Bitcoin Cash hard fork happened and, Bitcoin SV, at that point, I knew that, okay, this is not going away anymore. Never. And that was the point I knew that, okay, now you need to take a really big position in this if you believe in the future, because it's basically de-risked. And that was just waiting for the other things to happen, like institutional investors coming in. That was something I literally said in the early days, already 2013, 2014. I said, they're coming in, the banks are coming in, the funds will come in, and people are laughing at you like it's never going to happen. And well, it took a while, that's true, but it's there now. And so the thing is, if you get in early, and you don't have to put a huge amount in, but if things go times 100 or times 1,000, I mean, even if you put just a small amount in, it's real money in the end. Yeah. And so that's what I'm doing, and it paid off, and I think also other investments that I do will pay off eventually because of this.
Yeah, it's interesting because I, left tail risk. I would think, institutions adopting that. You would say that, but you said it was the hard fork. Why was that specifically a signal for you that this, that Bitcoin is anti-fragile, it can survive such a huge strive, basically? Like, why was that such a signal?
Yeah, so I mean, I had followed that discussion for over a year, basically, and I was actually really worried that it would split Bitcoin into two camps that would be fighting, and that both wouldn't survive because of it. And then it became clear that the original Bitcoin, the normal Bitcoin, BTC, was really by far the winner, and that made it so much stronger. I feel that gave me the conviction that if this doesn't break Bitcoin, I think nothing will break it, actually. And so, that was the moment I really felt like, okay, now is the time. It's
that's interesting, because now, of course, we see this Bitcoin core versus not debate, and people have certain ideas, feelings, worries, etc. I personally think it's quite good that there's such a fierce let's call it a fierce debate, right? And my example with that is always like, have you ever been able to participate in which company your normal TradFi bank is outsourcing their technology to, right? Like, that never happened, right? You don't ever see that stuff. So I think it's actually good that it's like out there, and I kind of like go back and forth. So I think it's also good for people to actually learn, about the history, or how people look at the future, or what they think about Bitcoin in general. So it's also kind of daunting, or perhaps a bit scary, because you don't really see that many discussions in the traditional world, right? But I personally would say it is a good thing, and interesting that we're here. Again, I don't think this will be the last discussion that's there, because the idea for Bitcoin, and that's what I wanted to ask you, is huge, right? Like, changing the technology for money is probably the biggest technological shift that we could go through or take on, basically, right? That disruption of that technology for money. Would you agree that is the big thesis for Bitcoin, or do you illustrate the big idea for Bitcoin in a different way? Like, what is its place in the world for you?
Well, of course, the technology is very important. I mean, we're living in a digital society, so money has to be digital. I think we were lucky in a way that's government started to use fiat currency, and in 1971, basically, really created a currency that was going to fail eventually. That made Bitcoin possible. If we would have strong fiat currencies, if we wouldn't have a devaluing dollar all the time, or if we wouldn't really have that need that we do have at the moment for Bitcoin. Then we could have had literally digital dollars that would have won eventually. But now we won't. We really need Bitcoin, even though most people may not see it yet. It's for me. It's inevitable. I know where this is going. Bitcoin will take over the world, and it's going to take another 50 years maybe, but it's going to happen. So, that's the nice thing about it. It's basically, it's basically a bet that the current system will not survive in the long run, and that's really happening, and I see that slowly happening now. The fact that if you look at the government shutting down in the US at the moment, markets, don't even care anymore. Things keep on going up. It's just, like it's purely liquidity coming into the market, and that's really due to the fact that the fiat system is not working anymore. That's what's fueling everything. Bitcoin all-time highs right now are fueled by the liquidity, and that keeps on going. And so I'm very happy we have Bitcoin as a safe net for us. And at the same time also something that makes us independent of the rest of the world, in theory at least. I mean, in practice it's a little different, especially because institutions have basically embraced cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. But I mean, we will always have the technology, but we will always be able to transact without middlemen, without these big financial institutions. And I think eventually we will replace them, but it's going to take a long time.
Bitcoin custody is evolving, and OnRamp is leading this change with multi-institution custody, eliminating single points of failure. Instead of relying on one institution, OnRamp secures your Bitcoin in a cold storage multi-sig vault backed by 3 independent custodians, where no single party can move your funds alone, providing an unprecedented level of security. Your assets are protected by a 100 million Lloyd's of London insurance policy, with all transactions fully auditable on-chain and only executed at your direction. This means complete transparency and control over your assets at all time. Beyond custody, OnRamp provides comprehensive Bitcoin services that include trading, lending, inheritance planning, and IRAs. You can view them as your private Bitcoin banking partner tailored to your wealth preservation goals. Whether you're new to Bitcoin or an experienced holder, OnRamp's approach helps you secure your generational wealth with unmatched security and peace of mind. You can sign up at onrampbitcoin.com and use code BRAM, that's BRAM, to receive $150 in Bitcoin after your first deposit. If you first want to learn more, you can also book a free consultation via their website to speak with one of their Bitcoin custody experts. Tell them you came through me, and they'll take extra good care of you. My American friends, I've got something for you. If you're into Bitcoin, you want to grow your stack in any way possible. What if you could do it effortlessly just by spending your fiat? The Gemini Bitcoin credit card is designed to help you do just that by giving you instant Bitcoin rewards on every purchase. Just use it like any other credit card and earn back up to 4% on transportation, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% on everything else. There are no annual fees for this card and no exchange fees to receive your Bitcoin rewards. Sign up to get your limited edition Bitcoin Orange credit card and earn a $200 Bitcoin bonus when you spend $3,000 in the first 90 days. You can find more information and terms in the description below, or go to gemini.com/Bram to sign up today and start stacking effortlessly. That's gemini.com/Bram. It's actually pretty crazy to see where Bitcoin is after 16 years. Don't you think like that? In essence, that is a very, very short time, and like the footprint that it already has, I think, is pretty mind-boggling after 16 years. And like you said in the beginning, it could have easily died. It should have died, perhaps.
It should have died,
right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There were so many attacks on Bitcoin over the years, and it's I always expect. That's why I didn't put much money in the beginning either. It's like it's more like a bit of a gamble, but also it's a way of helping the community and not really expecting a huge payoff. I mean, if I knew it was going to go very high, if it would, if it wouldn't die, and it paid off. And now we're past the point of no return. It's literally a directional bet. It keeps on going up. It's going to be volatile, but if you just hodl, this thing is going to be so much more valuable. No doubt about it.
When I got into Bitcoin at the beginning, I always saw it as an experiment, in a sense that I don't see a middle ending, in a sense, right? Like it's either nothing or it is the measurement of everything of value in the world, basically. Like I don't really see a scenario where there's a middle, it just stops, right? Like fiat magically gets solved and the US debt magically gets paid and everyone has financial austerity and gets along, etc. And I think you would agree, but let's say that happens. We still have a traditional finance system with the banks, as you mentioned. I've heard you predict before that traditional banks will eventually function with only 1% of their current staff. Right. I've worked at 2 banks. There were a lot of people, and I always thought there's also a lot of people that don't really do anything, like a PhD econometrists that create Excel sheets for reports to the central bank, for example, just that. What does that look like? How does that transition look like? Because the commercial banks are obviously a big part of keeping this fiat money system going.
Well, a big part of the reason why we have so many people at these banks are regulations, right? And banks have to do so many things that actually are not necessary for their core operations. So I think it will be replaced, first of all, by DeFi. So many things can be done with stablecoins now or in the near future that are currently done by banks. So I really believe that DeFi eventually will take over most of the work of the banks. That's A. And at the same time, the banks that will survive will do it in a different way. AI will take most of the jobs because almost anything that these people are doing can be done by AI. So it's not necessarily even automation. It's just literally replacing it by AI, by new processes that are using agents for things instead of human beings. So I think a bank can be run by potentially a few hundred people instead of tens of thousands of people, or even more than that at the moment. So we won't need branches anymore. We hardly have bank branches anymore anyway. You won't need bank advisors. It's going to be an agent you're talking to. And everything you do is basically it's automated. It's the need for human beings, it will be gone. You don't need them anymore. So that's not a good thing necessarily for people working at banks, but it's going to make work more efficient, and the money and will not go to the bank eventually, but it will go to the people. So the people have more money. It will help them.
Yeah, I think it was JP Morgan last week. Say gold and Bitcoin are the debasement trade, basically everything that we have been talking about for the past 5 to 7 years, right? So it's interesting to see how far they are behind. Yeah, how do you look at that now? Obviously, you thought you saw that in the future. Now we're in 2025. Do you really see Bitcoin evolving as this neutral reserve asset, maybe even more neutral than gold, for example, right? Like our country, the Netherlands owns gold, but it's not necessarily all in their possession, right? So you could say like that is a flawed construct that puts the power in another nation, for example. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can actually fully hold it all by yourself. Yeah, how do you look at that now that we're actually here and all these things are happening?
Yeah, I mean, it is happening. It's a very, very good thing to see that politicians are embracing Bitcoin. Indeed, whether you like Trump or not, I mean, he's good for Bitcoin. He's the best politician we could have for Bitcoin. Just because of him, because he's going to be there for another 3.5 years, Bitcoin will do extremely well the next couple of years. And I think because of him, other countries will start looking at Bitcoin as well as a potential reserve asset. I mean, the US didn't really build a reserve asset yet, the Bitcoin reserve. I think it will eventually. But I think other countries as well because of this, and they will realize that gold is interesting and it has worked really well, and it will not go away. I mean, but the thing with gold is you have to physically have it within your own country. I mean, we've seen it with the gold. I think the Russian gold that's wasn't returned to Russia. You see it now that other countries, China is stocking up on gold, right? They want the gold in their own country, and it's just a sign of the times. People don't trust don't trust other countries anymore necessarily. In the past, you knew it if your gold was in the US, it was just as safe as having it in your home vault, basically. But that has changed. I mean, Trump could literally say tomorrow, "Sorry guys, it's now our gold," and you couldn't do anything. And nobody knows whether it will happen or not. But the fact that there's a risk means you have to bring it home, bring the gold to your own country, your own region. So, and with Bitcoin, you don't need to do that. It's you carry it on your USB stick or whatever you call it. It's it's always issue.
Yeah, I did a thought exercise when, like, a few months ago, there was Germany talking about getting their gold, I don't know, 10 billion or something from New York, and I just asked Grok, like, okay, how long does it take to move 10 billion in gold? What does it cost? And then it said, like, if you have boats back and forth or something, like it's 10 days or 8 days and security and this and that. And it ended up with, I think a few million in costs. And then I said, okay, in Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes and $3. If you want to be really sure, you can throw in 100K for a transaction fee, right? And I think that is what I personally find so interesting when I hear you talk about curiosity, for example. Just that example for people that are into gold, and I think see the whole macro scenario kind of play out as we are looking at it, but then totally dismissing these superior characteristics of gold. I personally find that very fascinating, right? Like, I don't have anything against gold. I don't understand it. Like, I've never been into gold. Like, Bitcoin is just my thing, but more like, hey, if something comes along that is an innovation upon the certain properties plus more of the thing that you're into, you should at least be curious and look at it, right?
Well, the reason is, I think most gold bugs are basically the older generation. These are people that have grown up with gold for decades, and it always worked well for them, and it's still working really well. I mean, gold did extremely well this year, so they feel like there's no reason for them to look at something else.
Yeah,
and they still think that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, or Bitcoin, they many of them follow the traditional media, and they have been quite negative about Bitcoin. They're still quite negative about it, so they still think, they don't understand it, and they don't really want to understand it because they feel gold is good enough for them. They don't see that Bitcoin is outperforming it every year, almost every year, except this year so far, but that may still change. And in the long run, Bitcoin will be so much bigger than gold. They don't see it, and they don't want to see it. It's the world they've grown up in, and they feel like it's good enough for them. They don't want to see something new happening. I think that's what it is.
Well, this is also kind of always how it goes, don't you think? Like, if you look at like old newspaper articles about cars or the internet or mobile phones, like there's always people that don't want to change whatever they've invested in before. And that's okay, right? Because I think that is actually what gives us the asymmetric opportunity in that sense. I think for the younger people, they see the digital aspect. They see that the world is moving digitally, and money is moving digitally. Trade, finance, everything is going digitally. So it's logical that there should be some sort of opportunity there, same as at the beginning of the internet, right? Yeah. Or even copying what worked in other countries. I mean, you created the Chinese YouTube, right? It's the same concept, basically. Like, if it works, it works, and you should scale it, and that is or adopt it, and that is where the opportunity is. And so,
I used to be a gold investor, actually, and one reason why I stopped being a gold investor is because if you have more than, say, a few $100,000 in gold, it takes so much space, right? I mean, I only want to have physical gold, but it's physically impossible to store it. I mean, in your bank, in the bank, you have these small vaults where you put these gold bars in. I mean, it doesn't fit anymore. These things we're too heavy for it. It's unbelievable. So
you have to outsource at a certain point.
Yeah, but then I'm like, okay, then you're outsourcing it again. But I want to hold it myself, right? It's like I want to do my own custody, basically. Well, I'm not going to store it at home because that's too dangerous. So. It doesn't work. I mean, a few $1,000s of gold, fine, but if you go for much bigger numbers, it just doesn't work. And so eventually, I sold all my gold for Bitcoin, and not looking back.
That's a good clip. No, okay. Yeah. Well, you really saw Bitcoin early, right? Like you predicted 100K 8 years ago, and while everyone was laughing at you, you were right. And we are here. We've been almost above 100K for the entirety for almost the entirety of the year, which is incredible. Like, in 2015, I think this is what we fantasized about, right? Like hitting 100K. I always thought like, oh, that's going to melt the internet. Deafening silence, by the way.
It's unbelievable, by the way. I mean, retail is totally out of the market. People don't see it. If people don't talk about it. I mean, we're hitting $125,000 this weekend, and nobody talks about it. It's crazy. Yeah. it just means that there's still so much potential, so much more upward potential there. And I'm really surprised about it. It's
But do you think people are burned by FTX or just broke, or what do you think?
It's a combination. I think, I don't get people are burned by FTX. I mean, it's a fairly small number of people.
I mean, just conceptually, news about bad crypto, etc.
About it. I mean, we all know about it because we all got hurt directly or indirectly. But I think most people have no idea about it. I think people were hurt by the volatility. I think a lot of people just panic sold at a certain point and just don't want to go back in. And so we've lost those people. And we're now waiting for new investors to come in. And, I think partially these are people that buying the ETFs. I mean, there's so much money going in the ETFs right now. But I mean, the retail that we knew from 2017 and 2021, those people, we don't see them anymore. I mean, I take taxis all the time here in Singapore. And I talk to taxi drivers, well, not a lot, but I mean, you have conversations, right? And I remember a few years ago, Bitcoin really was a topic that came up. And now nobody talks about it. It's just not a topic anymore. So these are the people that are not in the market anymore. And will they come back? I don't know. They should, but I don't see it happening yet.
Yeah. So when you predicted 100K, no one really saw it. Now you predict Bitcoin to 1 million, saying that is just the beginning. You mentioned in the beginning of this conversation that just growing liquidity as a driver. Is that the only driver you'd say, or are there any other fundamentals that you really see?
Well, I mean,
for example,
I think the most important thing is the printing of money that this keeps on going. That's liquidity. That's really what's the main driver of the Bitcoin price and of equity prices, of course. So that's really because the fiat system is not working anymore. There's too much debt. We can't finance the debt anymore. And the governments will have to, but they're trying to keep the system alive by printing more money. And where does the money go? Well, it ends up, at the top of the markets, so that means it ends up in stocks, in cryptocurrencies, in the real estate market. Those prices keep on going up very fast. You can make a lot of money there. And the people that are not invested in the markets, they're being left behind. Their money is worth less and less and less. I mean, as a good example, if you look at the all-time high for Bitcoin in the dollar, we've had all-time highs for most of this year. But for the euro, it took months longer to get to an all-time high, simply because the dollar went down 10-15% this year. People don't see that. I mean, most people don't see that. Americans have no idea about it. But basically, they lost 10-15% of their purchasing power this year if they want to buy anything from that comes from outside of the US, or if they want to go travel. But they don't realize this. They don't see it, and that's what's causing the Bitcoin to go up. It's just one of the very few ways to protect yourself. It's insurance against the government basically devaluing the currency and inflating their debt away.
So how do you see the difference between, let's say, saving and investing, right? Like, I see Bitcoin as saving, that is probably like 95%, and then 5% for investing, which in my mind is just stuff that's more risky than Bitcoin, right? And you say like S&P, like stocks, everything is going up because that is where the printed money ends up. How do you think through this? Like, there's obviously a portion of wealth you want to protect. There's a portion you take risk with. How do you think?
No, I see that differently.
Okay.
I have zero savings, literally. I mean, I have a bit of money in the bank, but that's really, compared to what I have, that's almost zero. That's really enough for the next 3-4 weeks. All my other money is invested. Really, I have zero savings. Everything is invested in other things, and simply because it's Bitcoin and Tesla are my money market. If I need money, if I need cash, I sell a little bit. And by diversifying a little bit, I believe in concentrated bets. I don't believe in investing in 100 different stocks. I believe in investing in 3-4 different assets or stocks, and sell a little bit every month to pay for your expenses, and that's all I do. If you look at my bank account, it's actually very low. So for me, everything is investment. There's no savings anymore. It's not needed.
I meant Bitcoin as a savings vehicle, and then
Okay.
Tesla, for example, being an investment in that sense. So that's kind of how
Bitcoin is also an investment to me. It's like, okay. I mean, Bitcoin and Tesla will do both very well. They will both do a 10x over the next couple of years. So for me, a savings vehicle is something that is not as volatile as Bitcoin and Tesla are. So, if you want to save, I mean, put it in MicroStrategy stretch, right? You get 10% per year in dividends. That is saving. If you want to make 10% per year, do it that way.
If you want to self-custody your Bitcoin stack, I recommend the Blockstream Jade Plus. I've been using this premium Bitcoin-only hardware wallet for a few months now, and I love its design and ease of use. What makes it stand out is its open source hardware and software, and Blockstream's unique genuine check, which makes sure that your device is authentic. No backdoors or compromises. You can connect with the Jade Plus however you want. Bluetooth, USB-C, or you can go fully air-gapped with its built-in camera for cable-free QR transactions. The metal case feels solid and the color screen is easy to read. And it connects with your favorite Bitcoin apps like Blockstream Green, Sparrow, and Electrum. Get your Jade Plus today at store.blockstream.com and use code BRAM to get 10% of your entire order. Let's talk about something a lot of people don't think about before it's too late. Where are you storing your Bitcoin seed words? Are they truly secure? I found my solution with StampSeed. They now offer both 12 and 24 word titanium plates, so whether you're securing a hardware wallet or a multi-sig setup, they got you covered. Your seed phrase gets permanently stamped into pure titanium that withstands fire, survives water, and lasts for generations. Unlike shallow etching methods, StampSeed's patented tools help you to deeply stamp every letter for permanent readability, protecting your financial legacy. Their new kit includes test pieces for practice and is compatible with both the 12 and the 24 word plates. Paper seed phrases are a disaster waiting to happen. Secure your Bitcoin with StampSeed for decades to come. Go to stampseed.com and use code BRAM, that's BRAM, for 15% of your order. What do you think about what Saylor's doing? For example, Stretch. I saw a thread last week where I just realized, wow, this is a huge product, an immensely huge product that I think is, well, it's talked about in our circles, but if this is a competitor to a savings account, which, by the way, basically is an acquisition product for banks, right? Yep. So they say, saving and your payment account is free. Although, well, when we were, 20 years ago, it was free, by the way. Now you have to pay, at least in in the Netherlands. Usually that's the acquisition product. And once people are banking with you, they park their money with you, right? You start to offer them the products like mortgages and loans, etc., where you actually make money. If Stretch becomes a competitor for that, because the interest on a bank account is sub 0.5%, I would say. Well, what are your thoughts on that? And it's backed by Bitcoin, right? It's fueled by Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, are you sure? I mean, I think first of all, I think Stretch is the ultimate money market machine, right? It's for anybody who wants to save some money in an account and makes make a bit of return on it. Stretch is the best solution. It's too early for many people because you need to have a certain belief in Bitcoin. If you don't understand Bitcoin, you may not want to do it. But what will happen is that banks will be forced eventually to almost match this, and it's starting to happen already. I'm not sure if you saw this, but right before we started this podcast, Galaxy Digital announced they're launching Galaxy One, which is a Robinhood competitor. They're offering 8% interest to accredited investors. If you have $25,000 or more in your account, you get 8% per year investment. They know. They play the game, and this is the first one. Other people have to follow. If people know they can get a 28% in a bank account. I mean, Galaxy is not really a bank account, but let's call it a bank account. They will go there. They will literally take the money out of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs or wherever they have their bank account and put it into Galaxy. So other will have to follow. And this is really because they see that Stretch is making 10.25%. I'm quite sure that Galaxy is using something like Stretch right now to finance this 8%. Otherwise they can't do it. So what I'm trying to say is like others will follow. They'll have to follow. And banks are going to lose a lot of their current returns because people take the money out of the bank accounts.
Yeah. And that is what fuels their business models, right? So I find it so interesting that when you think about, what Hayek said, the sly roundabout way of introducing another money, I think these products are that sly roundabout way, right? Because if you have a certain, I think that's also, by the way, why people don't understand what strategy is doing, is because they don't understand the fundamental Bitcoin thesis, right? Like the fundamental Bitcoin thesis for Saylor is, what is it, 21 million in 2042, or 14 million, whatever, a lot of millions. And so he says, I think that's going to happen. So therefore, I'm doing things today to have a stack, right? I think it's as simple as that. So he's going there, but already today he can create certain products that create a certain flywheel for him to not only acquire more Bitcoin, but then at the same time use that Bitcoin as somewhat of a way to secure the dividend on this initial start of a flywheel. And this is something that I just thought about last week. This is huge, because what you said, if you're siphoning away money to something that is still TradFi-ish, but basically half Bitcoin, it's fueled, backed, secured, whatever you want to call it, by Bitcoin, then that is literally the sly roundabout way, right? Because you just talk to people and say, like, do you want 8 or 10%, whatever, instead of 0? you can come to me, and I think that could go pretty fast, actually. If perhaps there's a systemic threat if people take money from the bank that isn't really there, but I wonder what
sounds not for the banks, but not for Bitcoin.
No, for the banks. I mean, but I wonder how big the bandwidth is there.
I don't know. We're going to find out. I mean, I think banks did not expect this, but it's an example. How crypto and DeFi basically bring the money that the banks used to earn. Those returns are bringing them to the customers, to the retail and corporate sector. So, I was last week at Token 2049 in Singapore, and I was pleasantly surprised about how much they were talking about stablecoins and using stablecoins for, let's call it traditional banking. I mean, for many people, DeFi is still too difficult to understand. Most people, not most, but many people in crypto, they don't like to, they're just a bit worried. They want a centralized party in the middle somewhere, maybe, or a party that's helping them with things, but they don't want these banks. And basically, by having new companies in the middle, like MicroStrategy, they allow you to make a lot more money on your returns on your money than you could with banks. So they're taking it away from the banks through DeFi and bringing it to retail and to corporate users.
And so what do you think about stable coins, in the sense that, like I said, I think America is using stable coins, and then also, of course, exporting it to the world again to kind of prolong the life of fiat money, right? Because now they say, like, okay, anyone can basically start a stable coin, but the peg, right, is based on how many treasuries you have. So in that case, they kind of artificially create a demand for the treasuries.
Smart, of course.
Of course. No, it's very smart, but like this kind of perpetuates the fiat dollar. So you say it's smart. Does that just buy them time to make a switch? Yeah,
it buys the dollar time, and as usual, the euro is way too late. I mean, the euro could have done this themselves. The EU could have done this. They're still not doing it. So they're missing out on this, and so it will keep the dollar alive a bit longer. I mean, not forever. It buys them a bit more time. But I mean, eventually, they're going to be different stable coins, not necessarily backed one-on-one by the U.S. Treasuries. I mean, they're already there, right? And not all of them worked. I mean, we've seen Luna, for example. We'll get other ones that may not be U.S. based. So I mean, eventually, if the dollar should collapse, there will be other stable coins that are not backed by treasuries, and then we'll see. But I mean, if you look right now, the companies like Tether, for example, they're so extremely profitable, simply because they keep the profits. They reinvest their dollars into treasuries, and they make a few percent on these hundreds of billions of dollars that they have on our balance sheets, or trillions. I don't know how many Tether there are, but it's crazy. They're so extremely profitable. And I think eventually that money is also going to retail. So there's going to be competition between stablecoins. Which one gives the biggest yield? And that yield could go up, quite high as well. And then one stablecoin will fail because they take too much risk. But that's how the market works, right? And
exactly. Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I fully agree with that. That the next big blow up thing is going to be some sort of stablecoin issuer,
sure.
And when everyone thinks like, oh, we figured it out, something.
I know. Because people are forced to make more money. That's the thing. Because you want to return the yields to the consumer to make sure they come to your stablecoin, and you can only do that by having more yield than your competitor, and that leads to more risk taking. I mean, even if you're backed by US dollars, you may do other things, do other investments on the side, and one of those things may go wrong, and you get a margin call, and you need to sell some of your treasuries. I mean, that could go really fast. We've seen it with FTX. If people lose confidence in you, then it's over and out. So
So I personally think Bitcoin, through that, one or perhaps multiple blow-ups, I think that will actually showcase the use case for just using Bitcoin as the foundational layer for whatever financial engineering you do on top. So that's kind of where I see a strategy going, and that's why I find it especially interesting that he is already attempting something like that stretch product. So I wonder if he can get the flywheel started like Tether has it, right? Like you said, they park it in treasuries, but also in Bitcoin. So they just have a certain idea of the percentage growth, and therefore you can do the prediction basically. So I do think that would be a good thing for Bitcoin. Just over time, just Bitcoin is always the same, right? That's the whole idea.
That's the base layer for us.
Yeah. And how do you see Bitcoin and AI then connecting, right? Like I think you've said something like, AI needs Bitcoin / crypto. There's going to be all these agents. Traditional payment systems cannot really connect with that. Can you kind of like talk through your idea of Bitcoin and AI?
I mean, that is my main idea. It's basically AI agents will run the world. They already started to run the world. I mean, I use agents in my day-to-day workflows. They don't really pay anything for me yet, but if I would want to add a payment rails to booking tickets, for example, right? I got an agent who's doing that for me now, and in the end, the final part is me saying yes and paying with my credit card, but. Look, that's not going to take much longer, and then I will say, okay, I just put some money in a wallet, and I give the agents the possibility to use that wallet to pay for things. And so you need crypto for this, because an AI agent, you don't want to give it access to your bank account, because it's often not possible. If something goes wrong, you need to you want something that's internet native, and that is crypto. So you want something that you can program. Where you can put a limit on it during a certain period or whatever, and you cannot do it as a bank account. Bank account, the money can be used until your bank account is zero, or maybe you can even do an overdraft. But with Bitcoin or with stablecoins, you just put a limit on there, or you can put you can program it and say you want maximum this per day, so nobody can really go over that. And so you need stablecoins, or you need crypto or Bitcoin in order to effectively use AI agents. Fiat currency simply won't work.
And so with all these things happening like parallel, but also converging, and we kind of talked about retail, just more people, I would say, I am retail, I'm a general person, right, that eventually found Bitcoin. Do you see any realistic path for like adoption of Bitcoin with the majority of people within 5 or 10 years, or do you think it'll take way longer, or maybe even never happen? Like, where does Bitcoin sit in the future?
So it really depends on the fiat currency system collapsing. That is needed to get everybody on board. Until the dollar collapses, you will not get the majority of people on board. People are simply not wired to change to something they don't understand, because most people never understand Bitcoin or crypto. This is simple to difficult for them. So it will only happen if the current system fails. If banks all fail, then people will switch. Or if there are easy ways of using it without understanding that you're actually using Bitcoin. So if for example, let's take the example of Galaxy, right? Offering 8% interest. If somebody can get a debit card on this, where they get 8% interest, then they will start using it, but without realizing there's Bitcoin behind it, right? It's basically using it without realizing you're using it. That's gonna bring everybody on board. I mean, I think maybe 50% of all the people in the world will ever be able to use a hardware wallet. It's just too difficult for them. 80 to 90% will never be able to do it. They don't understand it. They already lose the password to their Gmail account, right? You cannot give people 24 words to remember, because they're going to write it down and hang it on the wall, and someone take a picture, and the next day or an hour later your money is gone. So that's not going to happen. It's going to be new wallets, call them bank accounts that are based on crypto, that will bring the people in without them realizing it's crypto.
I wonder if in Europe, the funny thing is that they're not really talking about euro stablecoins a lot anymore, right? They did like 6 months ago. This was like a thing, and the Circle EU stablecoin. Now it's all CBDC.
Wow.
I do think that at some point in the road, whatever next crisis, could be a banking crisis, whatever, there's like an amount of people, probably not 50%, that go the way that you just described, right? They come to us and they say like, okay, tell me about this magic money. Or they go, I'd say, the CBDC route, you deposit 400 euros and you get 100 for free, or whatever, some sort of marketing thing. Do you see that happening? Do you have worries? And perhaps in general, what are like the biggest challenges you see towards the future in terms of money, finance, the debasement?
Well, I think most people will lose all their money. That's what I think, because most people will be in the fiat system if it eventually collapses, either through CBDCs or in other ways. They simply don't have the investment in crypto, so they're gonna lose their money, and that is something that's really worrisome. And it's simply because there's not enough education. People trust the government. They trust the government to save them. That's really what it is. They know, or maybe they don't know, but they think that Bitcoin, if you lose it, you really lose it, and that's correct. So you need to watch out a bit more. There's no insurance if something goes wrong, and that's why they will keep their trust in the government and stay in fiat currency. But in the end, it's going to be a disaster for them. I think most people, just like in Weimar Germany in the 1920s, they'll lose all their money, either because of hyperinflation or simply because the whole system collapses. Governments are not able to refinance their debts anymore, and all of a sudden, it's over. And this can go really fast. And hopefully it will never happen, but it's something I am prepared for to happen in the future. And that's why I believe everybody should have at least a little bit of their money in Bitcoin. That as an insurance for the future. Yeah.
In what time frame are you thinking?
That's impossible to predict, because it's about confidence. It's about people believing the government. And things have changed a lot over the past 5 years. I think 5 years ago, a lot more people trusted the government than people do right now. And I think with the polarization in society and the forced turning that we're in, basically the huge changes that are happening in society at the same time, at the same time while AI is taking over the world, this trust will go away faster than before. But there's going to be a catalyst, for something will happen where people suddenly lose trust. And whether that's going to happen in 2 years or 3 years or in 5 years or 10 years, I don't know. It normally takes longer than you think. I mean, we see it all, that it's not sustainable, but most people will not see it until it's too late. So I don't think it's going to be very soon, but it could all of a sudden be very soon. It could be a very small thing where you think, why is it important? That people start to realize, hold on, But it's not something that you can predict. It's not a curve where you can say, okay, till here, and then suddenly it breaks. No, it's like this, and all of a sudden like this, and then over and out.
Done is done. Yeah. I do think we'll see a Christine Lagarde press conference where she says it's the people that are invested in Bitcoin and all these things that have caused the loss of trust, in the euro and stuff like that. That I don't want to say 100%, but I'm at like 85, I think, something like that. We will definitely see.
Well, I mean, you always try to blame the enemy, right? Or the people you perceive as the enemy. And they have the power to do that because the traditional media will broadcast it and people will believe it. But it's temporarily. But I mean, I think it's going to be a way to tax the Bitcoiners. There's going to be, and that's what I really expect. If tax revenues go down significantly because people start to lose their jobs because of AI, they will look at crypto holders like, you guys were lucky, because it's always luck, right? So you guys were lucky, so you have to pay an additional tax on your crypto, something like this. And then
your equitable amount, your equity.
Yeah, and it starts with a small number maybe, and then it actually is a little bit higher, and then all of a sudden it's like, like gold in the 1930s, 1933, where the US basically told people to hand in their gold. I mean, it could happen with Bitcoin as well. If they make it illegal, if you don't hand it in, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, it's not the strangest thing in the world, and probably most people in society would actually be in favor of it, because most people don't have Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think this I didn't have on my list of questions, but this is this would help me in thinking about this. Mm-hmm. Isn't this why, when you're big into Bitcoin, you should also be prepared to leave? And actually, the technology for Bitcoin enables you to leave in some weird way, actually. What do you say to people about that? If this, what you just said, is happening, I mean, I'm not fully there yet, but I do say to other people, then you leave, right? Like, I don't want to leave. I know I can leave at that point. Like, how do you think?
You should be prepared to leave, I think. I mean, most people are too connected to their home country to all of a sudden leave, but you should be prepared to leave. So start looking at other options. I mean, look, I lived outside of the Netherlands for 30 years now. Literally, this year it's 30 years. In 2 months, it's 30 years I left. So it's a very long time. For me, it's, I lived all over the world, and I will keep living all over the world. So for me, it's easy. If I need to leave Singapore tomorrow, well, not tomorrow, but if I would have to leave in a month, I will just go, right? And I have other places where I can live. I have different residencies and things. So I would advise people to do the same, to be prepared, to have a residency lined up or already arranged for yourself, to open a bank account somewhere else, open an exchange, an account at an exchange somewhere where you can quickly move funds to if needed, because if all of a sudden these big taxes will be announced, you have to move very quickly in order not to be caught in it. I personally think there's some really good places in the world to live, much better than the Netherlands. But I also understand that people say they cannot leave because they have their connections to their family, to their friends, their job. So, totally understandable. But at least think about it. If shit really hits the fan, what can you do, right? Where can you go? At least start thinking about it. Talk about it to your partner, to your wife, whatever, to your kids, or even to your parents, and explain to them what you're thinking, and they may laugh about it, but they may understand it later on. And at least think about it and have a plan B or a plan C if things really go wrong. Because the moment it really happens, it's too late, because then everybody wants to get out, and then the door is not big enough to go out anymore.
Well, I think this is why I one of the reasons I started the podcast is that I think you should do something now, right? Like, I think, and step one is get at least a part of your wealth, however much it is, in Bitcoin, something you can, truly own and take with you, and which increases in purchasing power over time, at least to mitigate the non-existent, future retirement that is not going to be there. But with everything happening in the world, I think this is adjacent to that. Would this be your most important advice for younger generations, kind of preparing for this? Or is there anything that you tell your children or other young people, like what should we do differently than our parents?
Well, I mean, I tell them a few things. I mean, my kids have lived all over the world, so for them it's they're currently looking at where they're going to study, and it's not about which city in a certain country, it's about which continent I want to study, and then which country, and then for them it's a much bigger thing, much easier decision to make. For them, the world is one big place, and if you can fly somewhere within 16 hours, you get basically everywhere in the world, so that's easy. They know about Bitcoin. I mean, my son was 6 years old when he's now almost 18, when he gave his first presentation in primary school about Bitcoin, when nobody had any idea what he was talking about. So, I mean, for them, it's part of life. It's a normal thing. But what I also tell them, it's not directly related to Bitcoin or to this, but it's like, the world will change a lot. And I told them, they're 16 and 17. I told them, you likely will never have a job. Because if you go to university next year or in 2 years, and you're going to be there for 3-4 years, in 5-6 years, there will be no jobs anymore. And this is something you need to keep in mind. So don't study something because you want to work in that field. If you like law, study law. If you want to become a lawyer, be prepared that you'll never work for a law firm, because those jobs will not exist anymore. If you like accountancy, I cannot imagine anybody liking that, but I mean, if you do that, study it. But don't study it, become an accountant, because that will not be done by you. There's going to be AI agents doing it. Almost any job in the world will disappear over the next 5-6 years. I truly believe this. I mean, many people laugh at me and say that's not happening because there will be new jobs. Yeah, some new jobs, potentially. But most jobs will be taken over by AI as well. I mean, there's literally, sometimes when I have discussions with people, I tell them, okay, just name 3 jobs that you think will be here still in 5 years or in 10 years. And, basically any job they tell me, except for like a Taylor Swift singer or, a soccer player, maybe even for a Formula 1 driver, those things, but they'll still be there. All the other jobs can and will be done by AI, because it's faster, it's cheaper. These things work 24 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day. They make less mistakes. It's less dangerous depending on the kind of work you're doing. It's simply there's no reason to use human beings. There will always be some human beings overseeing these things, but I truly believe most human beings will not have a job anymore in a few years. So the advice I give my kids is like, if you want to study, fine, no problem. You can study whatever you want, wherever you want, but don't do it because you want to get a job in that field. You'll probably have to create your own job, and most likely that means doing something you like to do, something you're happy to do. Whether you get paid for that is another question. You may not. So that, they are prepared for a different world, a world full of AI and full of crypto.
I wouldn't want to be 18 today, I think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the thing is also...
It's different. It's just different. Yeah. It probably just different.
The thing is also, so I don't see it as a complete negative either. I mean, yes, the first few years will be very difficult. I do believe we'll get to some equilibrium where AI will make life so good and easy and cheap that you don't need money anymore. Money may disappear in its current form. Everything is going to be free, basically. Free transport, free food, because we're going to have free energy as well. So, it's a very different world from that we currently live in. And I think my kids will live in a very interesting world in 10 years from now, 15 years from now. They will not have to go to a job at 8 in the mornings, 5 days a week, only having the weekend off. For them, it's kind of like a perpetual holiday where they do the things they like to do. And, they may or may not need to earn money or do something to survive. But I think they're gonna have a much nicer life than we have potentially. But you have to go through that transition period first.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So the next 5 to 10 years are going to be difficult. Could potentially very difficult. I mean, there could be civil war. I mean, we're seeing it a little bit already. There's signs that things are changing in society, and small things can all of a sudden, lead to bigger outcomes that we don't want to see. That's also a reason why I think you should potentially leave certain countries at this point. But aside from that, there's going to be a difficult period. There's going to be a period where I think potentially a lot of people die in the world, also because of climate change. But look, there's so many things happening. But we'll get through it. We'll find solutions for it, and we'll get through it. The end result will be much better, but you have to be prepared to get through that period. And that's another reason why having Bitcoin right now could really change you. If you have Bitcoin and other people don't, you're starting off on a better foot than the other people do.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think if you see Mo Gadat is his name, right? Like talk about AI and it's going to be rough. Like I see Bitcoin as a protection to weather through that storm, basically. Like I don't know what's going to be after that. That's going to be pretty wild, like unimaginable, right? But you have to, like the next 10 years, which not or coincidentally is also when 99% of all the Bitcoin will be mined. So there's this Bitcoin rush, right? Is something that you just need to survive and also stay alive, in a sense that people say,
Stay alive.
well, even after the 10 years, it could also be. I saw in China there's this reverse aging something discovery, right? Like, it's going to be crazy, but yeah, you need to literally survive.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
It's
okay. So that's a little scary. I have two last questions for you. I'm looking at the time. That's a little scary. I don't want to say that is bullish, but like, can you describe what makes you bullish or positive or enthusiastic about the future? If we have to contradict what you just said.
Well, I mean, the long-term future is positive, right? I mean, this life of abundance we're going to get to is very positive. But in the shorter run, look, I mean, it's fascinating how the world is changing. It's fascinating to see the things we can do with AI nowadays. It's fascinating to see how easy it is to communicate in this world. I mean, 30 years ago, when I left the Netherlands, I literally, when I called my parents, I had to keep it very short because it was expensive to call overseas, right? There was not even email literally in 1995 when I left. I mean, at least, there was email, but hardly anybody used it. My parents couldn't use it, for example, so I couldn't send them emails. It was such a different world, and it's changed so much in a positive way. I think this positive change will keep on going. And yeah, to me, I think we live in super interesting times. I mean, every day there's some excitement. If I go on X, I see new things. I'm curious about the future always. But I also know that for many people, life will be very difficult over the next couple of years, and that's the downsides. But then, I can't help everybody either, right? We cannot do that. The only thing we can do is tell them, guys, buy some Bitcoin, protect yourself. And if they don't want to listen, well. Yeah, I've been telling people for 12 years, right? Buy Bitcoin. And some did. And they're very happy. I mean, I know some guys that bought early and they have a very different life now than they had before.
Yeah.
Most people didn't. And they're like, well, you were lucky. I'm like, okay, good.
Okay. Well, at least for trying, I think. Yeah. All right. Last question. And I ask everyone the same question, which is, what is a core belief that you will never let go of?
A core belief is that the most important thing in life is to pursue happiness. Don't focus on money. Don't focus on work. Do focus on things that make you truly happy. And it's going to take you time to find out what makes you really happy. When I was younger, I thought work made me really happy, but it wasn't. It was more work that, because I was quite successful in my work, it made me feel good. But in the end, it was only about, my ego, right? It was about making money. Now I know what really makes me happy. What makes me happy is being able to not use an alarm clock in the morning ever in my life. Well, only if there's a flight that I have to take. And my assistant knows she shouldn't book me flights before 10 in the morning because I don't want to put my alarm. Right? That's good. That's the sort of. So basically, having the happiness that you get from not having people to tell you what to do. You decide what you do with your time, and that's most important to me. Follow that always. I know I love nature. So I live in Singapore in the middle of a big city, but I go into the jungle here, and there's a bit of jungle left in Singapore. I go there, try to go there once a week. I have different houses in nature in other countries. I love to go there and just be away from the world. That's what makes me happy, and that's what I want to pursue. Not work, not money, not my ego, not trying to be famous or something. I had that in the past. I don't want it anymore. Just do the things you really like to do, and I think that's important.
Awesome. Great advice. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I think this conversation will be helpful to a lot of people. So I appreciate your thoughts and your wisdom, and hope to stay in touch. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I enjoyed the conversation, and looking forward to speaking again.
Likewise. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you can click here to find more just like it, and click here to find all Bitcoin for Millennials podcast episodes. Also, please like this video if you want to help shine a light on the message of Bitcoin, and subscribe to my channel to stay connected. I hope to see you for a next episode. Bye.